We are on.
Will
Nice
we
to
see the slides?
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
You'll see them come up.
After talking with Mary Jo on the phone for a while, I'm so happy to meet you, Mary Jo. You
Yeah.
are so gracious and
Oh.
and nice and
Thank
helpful.
you. We got to share music last night. We have a nice
Oh,
anthem.
right, we shared our favorites about rising and being strong and being fierce and on fire and all that stuff. Yeah. Did the one that we picked play this morning?
We're gonna play it at the
Oh,
end.
okay. I was gonna say I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so we have our attendees joining in. We have 4 minutes to start. People are coming.
There's Mary Jo and Venus. Joan Simpson, is that a new person?
Joan Simpson is our moderator and
Oh,
program
okay.
manager extraordinaire.
Wow, how wonderful.
Yes, it is wonderful. What a good team we have.
Yes.
Mhm.
How
Wow.
come we cannot see the slides?
Not yet, because they're gonna pop up when you're talking. Dunya will share them.
Right now, what I see is
Dunya, did you
for-
want to put up the slide? And Dunya, can you share your screen so we see you now?
Good
Hi, Mary Jo.
morning. Thank you all to each and every one of you for finding the time and joining today's interactive virtual event, We Rise Together. My name is Dunya Hafez, and I will be your educational and technical assistant during today's virtual event, along with the amazing Serena, who is co-hosting this event. Thank you, Serena.
My whole page got frozen and I couldn't, Donna, I could not even see your lips moving. You're just sitting there like it all froze. How do I unfreeze it? And I don't know how it froze.
Just give it some time, Patricia, and it will work. Don't worry.
Well, because everything you said stopped. Everything stopped and is frozen.
It's okay.
And
just give it some time. It will roll out. All right. And before we start, we just have a few housekeeping items. We will be hosting this as a webinar, therefore your camera is not visible and you are muted. Please make yourself comfortable. Make sure you have water, blankets, and pillows for the meditation practice. And do not feel your eyes always need to be on the screen during the webinar. If you have any questions during the presentation, just write them to chat or message us and we'll be happy to assist you. There's also the Q&A button where you can write your questions to the panelists and we'll find the time to answer those questions at the end of the webinar today. All relevant links can be found on our Stay Well, Work Well program page on West's website. Link will be posted in the chat and we'll be posting more resources and links to our panelists' websites in the chat as we go. To begin with our program, please help me welcome our We Rise Together event moderator, Joan Simpson. Joan is leading our training and leadership programs at West, and she holds a master's degree in social work. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Danya. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm excited.
Uh-oh. Believe she's frozen.
Okay, we'll keep going from here. Hopefully we'll hear back from Joan in a minute. We're honored to have the presence of women and allies from all walks of life with us today.
Okay, so I'll continue. On behalf of Women's Enterprise Solution.
Sorry, we're having a little technical issue there. Joan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you, Mary Jo.
Can you continue? Are you good?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Go ahead.
What happened?
We don't know.
Okay. And I came into work specifically so this would not happen today. Okay, I'll start over. Welcome everyone. On behalf of Women's Enterprise Skills Training of Windsor, I want to welcome all of you to today's We Rise Together event. We're so honored to have the presence of women and allies from all walks of life here with us today. Before we go any further, I just want to check to make sure that you can hear us and that you can see us. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and if you could put your response in the chat, that would be great. The first one is, what made you decide to attend today? And the next question is, what do you want to know? Okay, Mary Jo, I'm going to need you to let me know when I am not on, when it's not working.
We got you. You're doing great.
Okay,
so
all right,
if
let me
you
just
hear us,
check.
please answer. Okay, I'll just put here. Okay, we've got some responses coming in. Great.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that means they can hear me. Wonderful.
Maybe we can hear a few of the responses on the screen. We're hearing, I was curious about the topic. I want to support the cause. The topic and conversation are interesting, and it's a good time for them to take a break. Want to be more involved in this cause. So I think we're being heard and seen. Thanks, Joan.
Okay, thank you, Mary Jo. Okay, so let's continue. Our topic today is We Rise Together, and we're so pleased to have some of our top women experts in the world on how to recognize, respond, and stay well when dealing with abuse and racial wounding. Today's guests are notable experts, authors, teachers, and counselors who have dedicated their life work to improving others' lives. 2 of our guests have appeared on Oprah, yay Oprah, and 1 of our guests has spoken at Princeton. We are in for some deep and meaningful learning. And before we introduce them, I would like to share the agenda with you today so you know what's in store. So for 11:05, we're going to have the introductions and acknowledgements. 11:10, we will introduce our author, Patricia Evans, about verbal abuse. 11:40, introduction to the Stay Well, Work Well program with leaders and how to register. And 11:50, we'll hear from the amazing Dr. Gail Parker. 12:45 will be question and answer, and 1 p.m. will be the conclusion of the event. Okay, moving on. At this time, I would like to welcome our amazing, awesome Executive Director, Rose Anguiano Hurst.
Thank you, Joan. I'm happy to welcome everyone here today. First, I'd like to acknowledge that West sits on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. And of course, we would like to thank each of you that are here with us today for being part of this program launch. Over the next 4 months, in our new Stay Well, Work Well program, We Rise Together, the participants will learn and share knowledge and skills. We hope to reach 100 women in this program. To set the tone for our event today, we'd like to start off with an incredible poem by Maya Angelou. And here she is with Still I Rise.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just because I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moons and like suns with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just because I laugh, as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words, you can cut me with your lies, you can kill me with your hatefulness, but just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh. Does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling and bearing in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, wow. There I go.
Wow. Wow. Still I rise. Timeless. Her poem encourages us to rise instead of fall when we're faced with abuse and racism. And it is a message that it inspired us to create this program, We Rise Together. We're thankful to the Canadian Women's Foundation for granting us the funding for this innovative and supportive program for women as part of their Safer, Stronger initiative. We'll be learning more about the program shortly. Today, we're in the presence of so much wisdom. Thank you to our honored guests for being here today to teach us and walk with us on our journeys. Patricia Evans, Dr. Gail Parker, Venus Ola, and Diane Bondi. And again, thanks to all of you that are taking time to be part of today's great event. Let's begin by welcoming America's foremost expert on verbal abuse, Patricia Evans, best-selling author of 4 books, including The Verbally Abusive Relationship, Verbal Abuse Survivors Speak Out, Controlling People, and The Verbally Abusive Man, Can He Change? She is also a highly acclaimed interpersonal communication specialist, public speaker, and consultant. Evans has appeared on Oprah, CNN, and CBS News. She's counseled 40,000 people about verbal abuse, many of whom didn't even realize that was what was happening to them. Mary Jo Russo is our capacity building lead here at West and has worked with our settlement team and programs manager, Joan Simpson, to develop the Stay Well, Work Well program. Mary Jo is a writer and educator who has facilitated pre-employment programs for women leaving abusive situations. She'll be interviewing Patricia today. Welcome, Patricia, and welcome, Mary Jo.
Thank you so very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rose. Patricia, I want to thank you for being here as well. And I also want to thank you for helping save my life about 20 years ago.
Oh, Mary Jo.
True. I didn't know it at the time.
I'm inspired when I hear something like that. People say that, and I'm just so glad. My goal was, I'll explain more later, but my goal was to just bring light to the darkness.
Well, you certainly did that for me, because I didn't know I was actually in darkness at the time.
Right.
But your book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship, How to Recognize and Respond to Verbal Abuse, actually helped me understand what I was dealing with so I could leave safely. And it's now the foundation for the skills the participants are going to learn in our new Stay Well, Work Well program. Now, you asked me if you could be interviewed by someone who had been through an abusive relationship. And I'm happy to share my experience. And here's why.
Oh.
The more I share it, the more I find that we are part of a silent sisterhood, stretching back to our ancestors, across our families, our neighbors, our friends. There are other women who have also experienced verbal abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and of course, racial abuse. And today we're going to start the journey of learning more about it with you. So, Patricia, please help us understand what exactly is verbal abuse.
Well, I guess to put it as simply as I can, by the way, I got goosebumps listening to your talk. Just just to see that you had this inspiration. In any case, verbal abuse are words and phrases that define you in a negative way. And almost always they are psychological rapes that you don't know are happening because someone may say, oh, you just want to argue. That what he's conveying to you is, I've entered your mind, explored your goals, looked at your soul, and I see what you want. You want to argue, which is usually the very last thing that a person wants when they're bringing up, hey, we've got this problem. Dinner burns if you don't come when you said you'd come. Could you always call me? Or some little problem tries to bring it up so they'll have happy marriage, happy relationship. But instead, she's told, you just want to start a fight. He's entered her mind. He's scraped out of her psyche, her consciousness, her own intention, which is to make a better, happy relationship and to give him information on needing a call when he's going to be late. So all this is changed, and all this is taken away from her and then pushed into her like a bullet shot into her mind and psyche. Is all you want to do is argue, or you're trying to start a fight. So these are words and phrases that define your motives, but it can be other things too. It can be anything that lessens who you are, who says you just want this, you think you're better than anybody. You think, yes, you are, you think, you want, you know, you don't know, you should, you need, you're trying to. And all these are crazy statements, but people hear them and they trust the person they're with, and they don't realize this is going crazy. This person's telling me what I think. You think you're the best. You think you know best. You think you're better than your neighbors. You think they can say anything. But the point is, if someone says you think, they're abusing you. If they say you want, they're abusing you unless you ask them, see, I want to have chocolate on my ice cream. And then if the other person says, okay, I see you want chocolate on your ice cream, then that one is okay. But anything that says you don't want ice cream or anything like that is just plain crazy talk. So one of the things to know is, if you hear anything like that, it is abuse. It is a psychological intrusion into your psyche. It's defining you as a lesser person and as not who you are at all. And it's leaving you feeling devastated, alone, and anxious to prove even to the person who's doing this that you aren't trying to start a fight, that you aren't thinking you're better than anybody, that you aren't thinking you're always right, and all the things that are being said to you. So then you can get caught up with trying to explain to the other person, trying to prove to the other person, this isn't what I'm doing. This isn't what I want. So it's very, I'll give you all the answers to why this goes on. When you really know what's wrong with an abuser, wow,
Thank
it's,
you. I'm just going to add to that. You had mentioned in your book, threatened, somebody rages at you, any kind
yeah.
of put downs, those are all part of it. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. Can I ask you, what is the comparison between, say, verbal abuse and physical abuse, Patricia?
Yeah. Well, most physical abuse will start with some verbal abuse, like you hate me, so I'm going to punch you or whatever. But physical is obviously physical. It's grabbing your arm, it's pulling you away from something, it's knocking you down, it's slapping you, it's spitting in your face, it's spitting in your soup. Anything that's physical and can be seen in the physical world that's abusive is physical abuse. And it's always about controlling you. But you see, what's most interesting, going to be interesting today, is we'll be able to discover what is wrong with this person, that they need this sense of control over you when you actually met this person, maybe married and pledges your love and everything. And then why wouldn't he trust you? Why would he be so need to control you? Like some abusers will want to know, if you're leaving the door, where are you going? When are you going to be back? Who are you going to be talking to? Where are you going to park the car? Why are you seeing your friend Susie? And all kinds of interrogation can occur just because you want to run over and deliver something that you picked up at the store for your friend. And it's just crazy. Yeah, but that it's insane.
So I just want to go a little bit deeper into that. It doesn't always have to be with a partner. Where does verbal abuse occur in the span of a person's life? You know, where could it happen?
Oh, anywhere in their life. Um, if they're around a person who has this kind of an illness that they need to dominate, that they want to be in control, if they can find anything about you, you don't wear your hair long enough or something. If they can find anything, your skin's too dark, your skin's too light, anything they can find to discredit you or to make you look less than who you are, then they may be triggered at that moment. Maybe they think that you got in line too soon ahead of them, but that you pushed your way in, but you didn't. But they can make up all kinds of things in their mind when they don't feel that they've got what they wanted, and then they blame you. And so verbal abuse can happen anytime, any place, anywhere, and any kind of a relationship with family or friends. It can happen anywhere. Yep.
And then here's a big one. You know, when I was experiencing abuse, as I said, I knew something was wrong and I didn't
Yes.
feel like myself anymore, but I didn't see it. So I want to ask you, why don't men or women, like a man can be in an abusive relationship too. How come they
Sure.
don't know they are in an abusive relationship until things get really bad? Maybe they become physical or life-threatening.
Basically, I'd say that one main reason is until I wrote my book, there was no literature in any language, not an article in a newspaper, not a paragraph in the universe that said there is such a thing as verbal abuse. So they didn't even have a reference point. Is this abusive? They didn't have anything, and there was nothing taught in any schools about it. And so there was nothing that they could tell, unless they were taken, put in jail because they were accused of robbing a store, and then they have to prove that they were somewhere else at the time. They might get out, but they never even thought of anything as abuse, because and that's typical. It's not like, oh, why was I so dumb, or why didn't I notice what was going on? Nobody does, because they have no name for it. It's like you had something that made a red dot on your ear, or on the top of your ear, a big red dot. You might have had this for years, and you may have looked around at everybody's ear, everybody you went by, and never ever seen anything like it, and never had a name for it. But maybe it has a name, more than ear dot. It has a name that describes a sickness that could be cured in a minute, in no time at all. And it's all because you never had a name for it. And it was obvious to you, but you never had a name for it. So now we have a name for it. It's abuse, and it's verbal.
Now,
And
I just wanted to ask you another question on that note, because I remember I was trying to do everything I could to keep this person happy. And there's something about your writing. Could you take us into the mindset of what's going on in the mind of an abuser versus what's going in the mind of their partner?
yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a huge difference there. The abuser, usually this abuser is somehow in some kind of a relationship with the victim, with the target. It could be a relative, it could be a partner, it could be a new date, it could be anything. So this abuser feels basically that he's defending himself and expressing his anger at being attacked. Wow, you never said anything to attack him. Excuse me. So why does he feel attacked? He feels attacked because you show up as if you're a separate individual and not an extension of his mind, which I'll explain how that happens. But in any case, you're suddenly part of him's gone missing, the part that's projected into you. You're acting like a separate individual. You're saying, gee, I'd like to order this for lunch or something, or I'd like to go to a different kind of restaurant, or anything that shows you up, not a complaint even, but just shows you up as an individual. Your individuality triggers him. He's feeling attacked, we could call it that as the trigger. He's feeling attacked and irritated, and he's feeling sometimes a really horrible feeling of almost being killed, so he can't actually, like, here's something that happens in a relationship. She might ask something of him. For instance, The light bulb keeps flickering. I've got another one. Could you replace it? It's up high. I don't want to drag the ladder and all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He'll say, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that'll happen. And then a week later, that light bulb's still flickering. Could you change it so I don't have to bring in the ladder? Because he could reach it. He's real tall. And so he's, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Quit complaining. And it goes on like that. Maybe a month or 2 months go by. If he did what she wanted, he'd be acting like she was a real separate person, not an extension of him, not his go-to part of him. She's acting like she's a real person, a separate person. And if he does what she wants, he's conjuring up real woman in the psyche where he resides because of this projection. So he's like separating himself from part of himself. The part of himself that's over there in her is gone. She's showing up as a whole separate person. He can't commit suicide that way. That's too scary. He's not going to do it. That's committing suicide. So he can't change the light bulb. He'll just say, all you do is complain, get your own ladder or something. And he'll blame her for, all you're doing is complaining when she's asked him as nicely as possible to, if he could just change that bulb, it would take about a minute. But for him, he doesn't know why his resistance is there. All he knows is he can't. He feels like he'd die.
So thank you for that. So it's never a win-win situation. It's not an equal relationship. I wanted to ask you to go a little more deeply into the parts of the book that I found very helpful. So you actually name 15 kinds of verbal abuse and how to recognize them. Categories.
Yeah.
Sorry. Could you talk about some of those categories? Like what are they?
I looked at what people say when they're being abusive, and and it's pretty simple. They're discounting what you said, or they're accusing you of something, or they're blaming. So discounting, accusing, blaming, trivializing. Oh, you're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just a light bulb. What's the matter with you? Trivializing, you're upset, and they go on like that. So it's just a way to describe a collection of behaviors, though most of the verbal abuse, or a lot of it anyway, shows up with the word you as the beginning. You are, you think, you want, you're trying to, you should, you need, you know, you don't know, you like you're trying to start a fight, you need to straighten up, you don't know what you're talking about, you know what I meant, blah, blah, blah. They just go on. So it can be denial, of you, and it's just basics. But anything that negatively, the categories are just, not, I don't know if they're that helpful, but they maybe they are, but they are just ways of categorizing. Is this telling me, is this discounting what I'm saying? Is this, is this defining me as lesser than anything, as a lesser person? Is this putting me down in some other way? So you can look at these things and see, I started the book the day after a professor told me what he wanted me to do. I won't get into that until we get to that place.
We'll come to it. So if a person's constantly ignoring your presence, making it seem like you don't exist. So in my case, I would sit at the dinner table and I would try to have conversation every evening, and it was almost like zero conversation was happening. What is that called, and why does an abusive person use that?
Well, I might have given it a name in the book, ignoring you, trivializing. There's probably something like that in there. The thing is, he's not going to engage in a conversation with you because that would be too much of him having to acknowledge your individuality. You're just an extension of him. You're the cook, the housekeeper, and all that, the laundress, and all the things that he needs done. If you're in this relationship with him and he wants all this done, then you're just the person who does all this. But he doesn't see you as a separate individual because he's lacking part of himself. He's lacking one of his own functions, which we'll get into when you want to know. When he's lacking that, you're it, and then
how would you respond to it what advice would you give a person who's dealing with that? What do they do?
I think I'd bring a radio and listen to songs, to stories and songs. I try to find something I wanted to hear from the library, a tape recorder, put it in a tape on, a mystery story or something. Things like that. You know, I would just, if he complained, I'd say, tough shit, go sit in the other room and eat your dinner. But I'm listening to this and enjoying my dinner
Mhm.
because I don't listen, because there's nothing to listen to you. All I have to listen to you is you're slurping your food.
I also like the one that you said, like, I'm bored, and just go. So you don't have to submit to these kind of behaviors, right? You don't have to be there. There's many of those skills that you teach, but can you tell us a little bit more about the impact that verbal abuse has on the person who's dealing with it? How does it affect them?
Well, yeah, it has a tremendous effect. I overheard a little bit, catching part of some radio or TV thing where some therapists were talking. I no longer know who it was or where it was, but they were saying that worse even than battery is assaults to consciousness. So what that means is that we have a bunch of cells that we formed in utero and so forth, and we're here walking around, but we're formed through our consciousness, our something, you know, our spirit, we'll call it, or our soul, we'll call it, something we can't see. We're formed through consciousness. Now to try to, so we have consciousness of maybe a past life. I had one that was shocking to me of all things, but and anyway, I won't get in that. But we might be conscious of various things, but to assault your consciousness, you're aware that you're a kind person and not trying to start a fight. If you hear every day you're just trying to start a fight, pretty soon that part of your consciousness dissolves or is no longer available to you. So you kind of lose yourself if you're abused over time, if you believe this feedback you're getting. So, you know, that can be quite dangerous. Like you just aren't heard. And then you're alone. Why, you know, that'd be the last dinner I'd ever have with this person. I would go somewhere else for dinner, even if it was just a club where I could eat dinner with just people standing around listening to music or something. I mean, this is no fun. He's not talking to you. You don't have to sit there every day and hope for him to respond. You can just go.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
here you thought, hi.
I just wanted to get to this point too. Like, I know you have a lot of specific suggestions, but if someone is raging at you or yelling at you, what are some general recommendations that you would do to
If
respond
you're
to
in a
this?
bad relationship, get yourself a GoPro camera. Now, you can't use it in a two-party state, like California. You can't record somebody without them knowing it, is the point. There's one-party states where I know I'm recording it, I'm in a conversation with this person, and I'm in a one-party state, I don't have to tell them I'm recording. In a two-party state, I have to tell him I'm recording. Either way, you've got this thing. He's raging. Say, I'm going to start recording you right now on such and such a day at such and such a time. You know, a minute. You know exactly. It's on. So he knows he's being recorded as a rager. It's going to look good on YouTube or something like that. You know, I found out somebody told me just in the last 2 weeks I was on YouTube. I'm not on you. I mean, I guess I am on YouTube, but I didn't know that. It's shocking. They said, well, you'd know that because they have to get permission. I said, no, they don't. Nobody ever told me. I gave talks around the country before COVID. You know, I was invited by the government of Spain to speak there. I spoke in Madrid. That was a fabulous place to go. Anyway, aside from all that, you can just say, I'm recording you now while you're raging. I don't want to forget what your rage sounds like. And they'll stop right away. They don't want their rage recorded. See?
But Patricia, I also remember you saying things like stop, or what did you say?
Oh yeah, very important. If there's somebody that's saying, "Oh, you always want to be right," every time you talk about something or say, "Why don't we try this or do this at an earlier time or whatever?" Oh, you just want to be right, you know. So every time you hear, you want, you think, you know, you don't know. What'd you say? The second you hear it, they stop. What did I just say? And they think, and then they notice they just said something that doesn't sound very good. You know, it sounds kind of crazy. So
So you
if
just
you,
say stop, or What
You
did
can
you
say
say?
stop, yeah, but they don't know, well, stop what? Stop walking, stop talking? I don't know what you mean. But if you say, what'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? Every time they say an abusive thing to you, and they'll say, I don't know, what did I say? I don't remember what I said. Well, I heard. You can always say, I heard you say you are an idiot, a bitch, whatever he just said. And then you walk away. So it resonates in his head. They don't pay any attention to what they say. They usually don't. They usually don't, aren't really conscious of it. And saying, what'd you say? Even some men say, I know I'm an abuser. I don't know why I do this, but I explain it to them, But I know I'm an abuser and all. And but I really wish somebody would tell me what I'm saying. I don't know what I don't remember. So I've told women now, always say, what'd you say? What did you just say? What did you say? Like that. And
Thank
then
you.
the person will stop and think.
And then there were some points in your book about assessing danger levels. And I knew I felt there was a sense of danger I had never felt before. Luckily, I had called our local shelter, one of our local shelters here, the Heides House, and they told me just be prepared to go and have a bag packed just in case. And I never thought I would use that. There was, not in my mind, but when the time came, I was glad I had that. What are some very specific clues that can, besides our intuitive feeling that you have a sense of knowing that you're in danger, are there any other clues that you might notice that show you that this is indeed danger?
Well, if this person is a gun collector, that you could be in danger. If this person, generally, trusting your intuition is really, really, really important. If he is the kind of person that just goes into rages, just for nothing, there's no way to even tell why he goes into these rages, then it's a real mental disorder, and that's scary. Yeah, and so being prepared to leave is really, really important. And leaving anytime you feel like this is too scary, this is too dangerous, he's too angry. He's angrier than he's been in a long time. Anything that gives you that inner warning and clear sense of this isn't good. You don't have to have a good reason for leaving. You don't have to have any reason. I just don't like being here. Go. You don't have to prove anything to him. You don't have to make him happy. Remember, he's crazy. There's some men, I will say, have you ever asked yourself when you say to your partner, you think you know best, or you want to argue, you're trying to start a fight, why you don't feel insane if you've never asked her, what do you want, or what are you trying to do? If you never asked her and you're telling her that, did you ever wonder why you didn't feel insane? And they all go, no.
An awareness, eh?
Yeah, they just.
Now, you just said this person's crazy, but I noticed that my partner was very adoring and sweet in public. Everyone loved the way they acted. He wasn't always like this all the time. So is this one of the reasons why other people don't know things are happening to a person?
Oh yeah, they have no idea. Think how hard it is for you to realize that you might have to leave in a hurry in the middle of the night, that he could be dangerous. They could never imagine that he even said anything rude to you because he's nice and he's keeping up his persona. He's saying, look what I'm just the most wonderful person. I'm really kind, I'm really nice, I really, am good, and she's lucky to have me, and they just build that all up. So once they do, it's hard for them to see. They don't see, they usually never see or hear these things. One of the things that I suggest to some clients is make a list, look at the appendix of the fourth book, and you can see all kinds of samples. You are, you think, you want, you don't know, you should, you need, and then blah, 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 blah under each one. And look at them as ideas and think about everything you've ever heard and make your own list. I've heard you say you are, blah, 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 you want, blah, blah, you think, you know, you don't know, you're trying to, and under you are is stupid, idiot, bitch, all those words, that you don't want to hear. But so when you make that whole thing, type it all up, make a couple copies of it, then invite everybody you've ever known from your churches, your community, your service organizations, so like we're gonna have a backyard dessert party. Everybody bring a dessert and I'll have lots of plates, lots of cups, lots of everything you could want, lots of chairs, and we'll have a beautiful backyard party, and we won't have to worry about being close in, with germs and stuff. So we'll have a backyard get together. So maybe 50 people come, maybe 30, maybe 100, whatever, then you've got this list underneath the magazine. So when your spouse is around, if this is for people who are living with somebody or married to somebody, pull it out and say, "Oh, honey, I'd like to ask you to make every effort on earth not to tell me what I am and think and feel and need and want, because guess what? You aren't me. You're not a woman, though you've been pretending to be me hundreds of times. And I don't know if secretly you've always wanted to be a woman. But in any case, I've heard you say, for example, you are blah, 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 you want, blah, blah, blah. You read the whole thing as loud as you can. People have come in closer and closer now, 100 people or 50 people. Nobody says to you, say, so here's a copy. Please do your best to not do this anymore. Thank you, sweetheart. Anybody want some more cake? So you
Tiffany,
have,
you take these things out to kind of epic proportions, and I can picture what you're saying because it's memorable, right? And the idea is you want to maybe write down what you're hearing, and then you can read it back to yourself or someone else.
yeah.
Makes sense. I just have one or two more questions.
Oh, sure.
Don't mind. Now, people often don't understand why a person is staying in an abusive relationship. Maybe they've told their friends or family, but they really just feel they can't leave. What advice would you give a person who feels the abuse is happening and they can't leave?
Call the local shelters and find out if they take new people in, and also find out if they know, because they work with so many abused women, do they know a really good attorney? Do they have an attorney they like? And they used to not tell anybody. It was like a shift happened for some reason. Maybe some case occurred, whatever. And now I've heard people referred by shelters to different attorneys that they think are great. You want an attorney who understands controlling people. So find a really, really good attorney. Tell them you're going through some things. You may need a divorce in time, or you may need some other kind of other help. So you'd like to give them your name, and so that they can get to know this attorney. So you have a really good attorney. Because the first thing they'll say, if you're leaving, you're not going to get the kids. So if they can, they'll take the kids because they're so.
Get yourself a lawyer and get in contact with a shelter.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are these helplines that are available like 24 hours a day. That there is usually someone that can listen and talk to you. If you're in a safe space, that can give you support, so you don't need to suddenly leave. And just because we have a time factor, I have one more question, and I need to ask this. What was it that prompted you to start writing all these books on this topic?
Well, I had watched my father put down my brother. He's since passed away. My father every day would say something like, "You're carrying that wrong. What's the matter with you? You're hopeless. You're never going to amount to anything. You're worthless. You're the stupidest person." This brilliant, nice young man, So I decided when I get through college, I'm going to find out how to help people get put down. That's my purpose in life. Okay. And it sort of became my purpose. And so I'm back at the university looking at the library, and I see Dr. Carl Putz, P-U-T-Z. And he says, "What are you doing?" I told him I'm looking for a course somewhere, that will help me to help people to teach people how to save themselves if they're being put down. And also, any other information I can get. And so he said, first of all, those put downs you're talking about, that's verbal abuse. He gave me the name. Then he said, there aren't any courses. So why don't you write a book that would show people how to recognize it? That would be something. And I thought, wow, okay. And I felt like my soul spoke to me, because the next day I started that book that I ended up presenting on Oprah. I just started the book. So he told me exactly what to do. There's things in spiritualists know of things like, your animus speaks to you materialized or this or that. But anyway, I did call and talk to his wife once years later, and she said he followed my work because I'd be traveling around and doing these talks, Anyway, So that my seeing verbal abuse and then getting the name of it and getting the direction of what to do about it was all in one moment. Boom, that was it. Okay, now I'll do it. So that's what I
so
did.
much. Thank you that you asked, that you followed your feelings to do this
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I think if
Tell
people
me-
want, young people, they want to be successful, they don't know what they exactly want to do or be or whatever, the most important thing they can do is to pay attention to what they always wanted to do. The main thing they really wanted to do. There's always something there, something they thought, oh, I wish I could do that or whatever. And now they can do it.
On behalf of all the women and men you've helped, I want to thank you for helping us get out of terrible situations. And I want to thank you for being with us today.
Oh, Mary Jo, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And seeing all these lovely people here, it's just a wonderful, wonderful time for people to meet each other and move forward. Yeah, in freedom.
Yes. And we're going to get back to that idea of freedom at the end of the webinar. But for right now, I just want to turn it back over to Joan and Rose because they're going to announce the winner of a draw for 2 of your books. By the way, you can order Patricia's books online or in any bookstore. She's got a website called www.verbalabuse.com, and she's also available for one-to-one consultations.
Thank you very much. That's true. Yeah. If anybody wants to know what specifically can I do, call me.
Thanks, Patricia.
Yeah. Thank
Joan
you.
and Rose, back to you.
Great.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo, for sharing your story with us, your experience, and thank you for being vulnerable and just being honest and open. And I want to thank Patricia Evans as well so much for your knowledge and for sharing. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so let's move on to the first draw. So the first book is going to be okay.
Great, and here we can see the first winner is Sadia. Congratulations, Sadia. We'll be reaching out to you so you can collect your book.
That
Joan?
book is the verbally abusive relationship book, so good.
Okay, right. The name of the book that she won was The Verbally Abusive Relationship. Thank you.
The next book is Survivor Speaks Out. Go ahead, Danya.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Jacqueline. Once again, we'll be connecting with both of you to ensure you get your prize. Congratulations.
Thanks, Rose. For those of you who are wondering if we will have more prizes like that, yes, we will. As we go out throughout the event today, we'll have opportunities to do some more drawing. Okay. Now we're excited to introduce our new Stay Well, Work Well program leaders who are standing by.
So we want to take a moment to tell you some exciting news about our Stay Well, Work Well program, what it is, who it's for, and we are about to meet the leaders of the program. Joan?
The Stay Well, Work Well is a new online program at West with a focus on dealing with abuse and racial wounding. It features a licensed psychotherapist and yoga instructor and will run for 4 weeks with 4 intakes beginning July 22nd until November. There is room for 25 women in each session, and it is a free program thanks to Canadian Women's Foundation. The program has a once per week learning and sharing. Now we will be hearing more about the program from our program learning and sharing circle leader and counselor, Venus Ola. And I am excited to have Venus on board with us. And it's a privilege also to be able to speak about Venus' qualifications and background and experiences. So Venus is a registered psychotherapist qualifying, and she has gained experience that has and has gained experience that will prove beneficial as she leads the Learning and Sharing Women's Circle to enable participants to gain insight and practical tools for dealing with abuse, practicing self-care, and making decisions for well-being. Venus has her doctorate in education and has been involved in the field of education for over 14 years. As a counselor of at-risk youth, a classroom teacher, and a lecturer at the University of Windsor. Venus offers counseling to individuals and families. Her areas of focus include anxiety, sexual abuse, depression, self-harm, bipolar disorder, and technology addiction. Welcome, Venus, and we're happy that you're a part of this program.
Hello, hi, thank you. And can you hear me okay? I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can.
Perfect, thank you, thanks. So thank you so much. I sometimes people think that I'm quite emotional, but so when I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to be here and be part of what's happening, and just humbled by the women, Patricia, Deanne, Dr. Parker, and everything they've achieved and what they do. And I wanted to say thank you to Joan and Mary Jo and all the people in West, because it's a wonderful program and it's greatly needed. So thank you very much, and just filled of gratitude to be here with everybody here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Venus. You have such a sincere spirit, just a sincere personality. I can feel it. So thank you so much. All right, so I have two questions for you, just two questions. The first one is, would you tell us more who you hope will attend the program?
Well, really what we're hoping, the people we're hoping that will attend the program are people, abuse is a very, very difficult experience and space. And I think it will take a lot of kind of courage and bravery to be able to come to this program, especially if you're going through, you're in the middle of this abuse. But really we're hoping people who can come are people who want to build skills, confidence, knowledge and understanding to be able to make really informed decisions about what they're going to do, how they can handle the experience and the next steps. For people to understand like the dynamics of what's going on and what they're experiencing. Hopefully the program give like validation to what they're experiencing. And just build that inner strength to be able to take the next steps. So that's the people that we're hoping to come to join the program. But really in terms of the program, it's about giving you that knowledge, that understanding, the dynamics, things about how to cope, and hopefully create a support network for women who are experiencing all of these difficult situations, because I think it's been mentioned here, it's very isolating, and often we can think we're alone, but with this program, just knowing that there are other women who are going through this at different stages, different experiences. So those are the types of, hopefully I don't keep going, but those are the types of people I'm hoping that will be part of this program. And it is 4 weeks. Obviously, I talked about this with Mary Jo, so hopefully Mary Jo is all right with me saying this. Because of the cycle of abuse and things that happen in abuse, we don't want people to think that if they can't make all 4 weeks, that they are turned off or they're afraid. Please, it will still be good to come to this program. Knowledge, support, some knowledge, some support is better than no knowledge and no support. So that's another thing I really wanted to kind of convey today.
Thank you, Venus. You've basically sort of answered the second question, but I'll ask you anyways in case you want to add anything to it. Okay, would you tell us more about the weekly sessions?
So each of the weekly sessions, there are 4 of them, and each of the weekly sessions is going to cover something slightly different. So the first weekly session, we're going to be introducing the program, setting kind of the stage of what we're trying to do. The second week, we're talking about the verbal abuse and how to deal with the verbal abuse, and really drawing on Patricia Evans' work with the abuse. The third session, we're talking about healthy and self-care. And then the fourth is really about envisioning that future for yourself. Keeping it in mind, knowing that even though it might not be imminent, it is possible, the potential is there. We're looking at reaching out to women, people within the LGBTQ2T populations, people experiencing gender, racial, generational, ancestral, or violence, abusive relationships.
Okay, thank you so much.
And we just want you to, we're just committed to sharing our time with everybody to make this work and to make lives better. And on top of that, sorry, I forgot to put this, you do get some great materials, essential materials, a workbook, you get yoga mats, we've got bolsters, and we've got earbuds. And I just want to again say, West have done an amazing job with this, just an amazing job. So please, please come join us on this journey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Venus. We're happy to have you on board for this program. And hopefully you'll be able to be with us longer for other future programs as well. Okay.
Thank you.
If you want to know more about the Stay Well, Work Well program, just visit our website and apply online. And also once you've registered, then obviously we'll connect with you for more information. Now, the next person that I would like to introduce is an amazing just social justice activist, author, and accessible yoga teacher, and that is Diane Bondi, or Diane Bondi. Sorry, Diane, I'm messing up your name. Diane Bondi is a social justice activist, author, accessible yoga teacher, and the leader of the Yoga for All movement. I didn't want to leave that out, Diane. She will be leading virtual restful restorative movement and meditation in the Stay Well, Work Well Women's Circle. Her inclusive approach to yoga empowers everyone to practice regardless of their shape, size, ethnicity, or level of ability. Diane's commitment to increasing diversity in yoga has been recognized in speaking engagements at Princeton, Duke, University of Buffalo, and UC Berkeley on yoga, race, and diversity. She's also the author of 2 books, and first one is Yoga for Everyone, and the second book is Yoga Where You Are. And we may be actually having some of those books for the draw, so keep that in mind. She is also based in Windsor, a Windsorite, fully, and she travels the world. So welcome, Diane.
I always do that. I always think I know how to use Zoom and then I don't know how to use it. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be in such incredible company. And I know that there's a lot of imagery out there in the world that shows us yoga is something that's very able-bodied, very, very white, very cisgender, very performative, if you will. But what I'll be sharing with you is something that is very accessible and very inclusive. And I'm very lucky because my restorative yoga teacher is here, Dr. Gail Parker, and you're going to get to see her work. So I'll be referencing her books. I'll be referencing self-care. I'll be referencing my own work so that everybody can feel included. And what I love about this panel is we're speaking to I've had this conversation with Gail, people of color. I feel we feel that it's too general of a term, but I want to reach out to everybody who has been historically excluded from wellness spaces and has not been able to access well-being. So I'd like to, differentiate between wellness and well-being, using our everyday access to taking a walk or drinking more water or stretching on our mat, or taking time for ourselves as a way to combat that constant stress that we're feeling in the world. As we walk through the world with this face, with this identity as racialized beings, we are often subject to verbal abuse and sometimes physical abuse. And for a lot of us who have platforms online, we're also getting that abuse online from people who troll us, or if we're sharing our lived experience, want to gaslight us. And then when we react, and I think Patricia spoke very, very well on this, when we react to what they're saying to us, then we're turned around and told, oh, you're starting to, you're trying to start a fight, or you're being too sensitive, or I didn't mean it that way, that whole gaslighting feeling. And this becomes a very big microaggression for us, a very internalized feeling for us, an instant silencing of what we're feeling or our identities or how we show up in the world. So what we know is spiritual practices such as yoga and movement and somatic practices, so moving our bodies, increasing our interoception, increasing our proprioception, how we feel in our bodies and how our bodies move through space, can help us relieve some of that trauma, can help us deal in the world much better. And not only does it have those properties for dealing in the world, it also helps us age more successfully, get stronger in our bodies, reduce our blood pressure, increase our heart health. There are so many things that affect populations that have been historically excluded, that we need to break down the stress within our bodies. So I'm really excited to be a part of this group and a part of this healing for a lot of us. And I hope a lot of the tips that you learn on your mat and that you access through the resources that this program gives you, you can take out and move into the world and have more resilience and more compassion for yourself and a better ability to handle stress. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to, is managing all the stressors of the world that keep us from living our best life or feeling fulfilled within this life. So thank you for the opportunity to share yoga.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was well said. I have one question for you, and I'm just gonna ask it anyways, in case you want to add anything else. Okay, and the question is, would you tell us a bit more about your approach and what participants can expect?
Yeah, my approach is very adaptive, right? So I know not everybody has a super flexible body, and out there in the world, when we've traditionally seen yoga imagery and yoga marketing, it's been very much that able-bodied, hypermobile, really thin kind of body out there, predominantly white. And I want to let you know that anybody can do this practice, and specifically that we're working with a gentle practice and a more restorative practice. What I know about the restorative practice is it's truly inclusive. You're getting a bolster, which is lovely. I'm going to have you grab pillows off your bed. I'm going to have you grab blankets. And this is going to be a practice where you can just be in your body without that constant conversation around, am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Is this the right way? I like to think of the mat that we're on, that mat that you're going to get is 24 inches wide by 68 inches long. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is in centimeters, even though I'm Canadian, I can't remember. But it's going to be your ceasefire zone, if you will. The place where you are not in competition with anybody else. You're not in competition with yourself. You're here for a truly restful practice. You're here to maybe move your body a little bit to help relieve some stress. So I take the approach that this practice really is for everyone, hence my books, that there's always going to be an adaptation for different kinds of bodies. There's always going to be an opportunity to rest. So it's really going to be a practice rated E for everyone. And that has always been my approach, that we're not excluding anyone, because the future is accessible and the future involves diversity and is for all of us. And that's the practice that I bring to the mat.
Thank you so much, Diane. We're excited to have you on board with us for this program. Okay, so once again, it will be 4 sessions and you can register on a first come, first serve basis on our website. And yes, once again, once you've registered, we'll definitely connect with you for the next steps. Also, just a reminder that participants in the session will receive workbook, yoga mat, bolster, and earbuds for the program. Thank you, Venus, and thank you, Diane.
Okay, wow, this has just been a great morning. What a wonderful launch. Thank you, everyone. And now we're moving forward onto the next section of our program, the seminar portion of our program. Just a reminder to get ready to enjoy the seminar with Dr. Gail Parker coming up next. Be sure that you get comfortable, prop yourself up with pillows and a blanket for Dr. Gail Parker's seminar and restful restorative yoga practice. We're so happy to have we're so happy Dr. Parker could be with us today. She is an author, psychologist, yoga health educator, and a lifelong practitioner of yoga. Her first book, Restorative Yoga for Ethnic and Race-Based Stress and Trauma, offers a self-care strategies and invites everyone, not just those directly impacted, to explore the intersection of yoga, race, and ethnicity, and to consider the psychological impact of race-based stress and trauma on all of us. She is the president of the Black Yoga Teachers Alliance, BYTA, and is known for her pioneering efforts to blend yoga, psychology, and meditation as effective self-care strategies that enhance emotional balance and contribute to overall health and well-being. Dr. Parker has appeared numerous times as a psychologist expert on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Her new book, Transforming Ethnic and Race-Based Traumatic Stress with Yoga, invites us to reimagine and engage in healing strategies for ethnic and racial stress and trauma that lead to post-traumatic growth. It'll be published in November 2021. Welcome, Dr. Parker. Thank you for being here with us today, and we look forward to learning from your wisdom and how to apply it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you everyone for taking the time to participate in this amazing event. All of the panelists and all of the behind the scenes people who did the work to make it happen, and of course, all of the participants. So I'm going to tell my story because rather than offer a lecture about, I'm just going to dive right in and do what I invite other people to do, which is tell your story, make yourself vulnerable, show up authentically. First of all, race-based traumatic stress is real. It exists, but it happens to be a topic that is not given the attention that I think it deserves, which is why I wrote the book. And I wrote the book in relationship to yoga because I've been a yoga practitioner all of my life, all of my adult life. And within that community of people, there is a real need, a real effort, I think, for many of us in that community, those of us who are involved in social activism, to bring awareness to the fact that everyone is not having the same experience here. We all have a racial identity, we all have a cultural identity, we all have an ethnic identity, but some of us are having more painful experiences than others. And without that awareness and knowledge, we can sometimes re-wound people. We can re-traumatize people by the language that we use. Patricia talked about that. Not that you're even necessarily trying to be abusive, although that can happen too, but because we're not sensitive to other people's experience. So yoga, from my perspective, helped save my life. And I will share that story with you. But it's why I teach it as a health strategy. That's what it is. And that's why I call myself a yoga health educator. I'm certified as a yoga therapist, and I am a psychotherapist by training, but I don't practice psychotherapy anymore. So let me dive in. I think it's very important for us to be able to tell our stories. And part of this program that you're getting ready, that hopefully you will register for, will give you the opportunity to share your story. Sharing the story is part of our healing. And the story that I invite people to tell around racial stress and trauma is the first memory that you have of being hurt emotionally, being wounded, stressed, or traumatized in some way by a race-related event. I'll start with mine. I was in the 6th grade, and I lived in Arizona. And at that time, at the time that I was in school, segregation was still the law in many southern states, and it was the practice in Arizona at the time. I lived on a military base. My father was an Air Force pilot and was actually one of the original Tuskegee Airmen, who are the for those of you who don't know, these were the African-American pilots who helped integrate the United States Armed Forces. So that had happened just maybe 5 years earlier. So this was all fairly new. I was the only Black child in my class. And I think that there were only, my brother was in kindergarten at the time. And I think there was one other Black person in the school. And there was a Mexican-American girl in my class. We were the only brown folks in the classroom. Our teacher decided that we should learn social skills, which included good table manners, but he also thought we should learn how to engage socially. So we had this ballroom dancing class that we took, and the upshot of that class was that we would all end up, that the boys would invite us on a date to go to a chaperone dance in the school. We would get corsages, and we would learn appropriate dating protocols. This was a long time ago. I don't think this is happening too much anymore. At any rate, so I was really excited because my little boyfriend, who was from, you know, in the military, everybody's from every place else. Nobody's like from a place. His family was from Richmond, Virginia. At that time, segregation in the United States was still the law in Richmond, Virginia. This was a white boy. So he and his father show up at my house to pick me up for this date. And my parents answered the door. I was standing behind them. And I saw this kind of funny look in my little boyfriend's father's eyes. I didn't know what it meant. It was just kind of a flash. I later figured out what it was. But anyway, so we go to the dance. We had a great time. We won the dance contest. I was all excited. I come home, I tell my parents, I'm all happy and excited. The next day I go to school, and it took me a while to realize nobody was talking to me. And it was not until we went to recess on our break to play that people were not looking at me, people were not speaking to me, and they were even running away from me. In the meantime, my boyfriend, I thought, had made it clear that I was no longer his girlfriend. And the irony of this is that he chose a little Mexican girl who was also brown, Iris Garcia, I remember her name, to be his new girlfriend. Okay, but I remember feeling like an outcast. And I will tell you that for the rest of the year, no one spoke to me. It lasted for a year. No one played with me. No one spoke to me. I didn't know at the time, I didn't fully understand what that was about. But what I felt was ashamed, embarrassed, jealous, rejected. And I concluded, because I really didn't have a category for what was happening, I concluded, well, I guess they just don't like me anymore. That was what I decided. I guess they just don't like me anymore. And I remember my mother asking me, why wasn't I playing with my friends? And I said, because I don't want to. Well, she was wise enough to know what was happening. And what was interesting, the reason I'm telling you this story is because these are personal experiences. These experiences are happening to us as human beings. And it doesn't just impact me, for example. It impacted my entire family. My mother decided that she would no longer travel with my father because they both understood that my brother and I were being exposed to racial abuse that was intolerable for them to accept. So she stopped traveling with him. We moved back to Detroit, which was her hometown at the time. My father was sent to Vietnam. So, and the elephant in the room was I never discussed this with my parents. I never told them what happened. I never shared with anybody what happened because I was so ashamed of the experience. I thought I had done something. I thought there was something wrong with me. So fast forward, now I'm in high school. And the reason I ended up in an all-girls Black boarding school taught by Catholic nuns who also taught First Nation people. That's what you call them in Canada. We call them Native Americans here. I was in one of those boarding schools. The difference is I was not forcibly removed from my family to go to the boarding school. My family sent me to that school because I was not able to make the adjustment to living in a big city after having been in protected military base type places for so long. So I was acting out. So anyway, so they sent me to this boarding school. Well, when I graduated from that school, the principal of the school and my parents agreed that I should integrate Duquesne University, which was a school in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the Northeast, that practiced segregation as a custom. It was no longer the law, but this was at the height of the civil rights movement in the United States. So they decided that I should integrate this university. Well, it was sort of like passing the torch, I think. You know, my father had helped integrate the Air Force. I'm supposed to integrate the university. And so I agreed to do this. The only other Black person in the school, as it turns out, was the son of a civil rights icon. Chuck Houston was his name. His father was Charles Hamilton Houston, who helped craft the legal case for that desegregated schools in the United States. His mother made him go to Duquesne because she thought that would be a good idea as well. So here we were, the only two Black people at the school. We were friends. My introduction to the school was when the Dean of Women called me in and told me and threatened me with the following. Interracial dating is not permitted on this campus. If you date any of the white boys on campus, you will be expelled. You will be expelled. They won't be expelled, but you will be expelled. I was totally offended by the threat. And so I marched to the president's office to tell on her. He said, she's right, you will be expelled. I stayed. I never told anyone. I kept the secret just like I had kept that secret in 6th grade. And I stayed for 4 years. I stayed, I did not leave. I did not leave. I was miserable. I was lonely. Academically, I did well because I didn't have anything else to do. But it was a terrible situation for me. 3 months before I graduated, I met a man, a graduate student, who was the son of Eastern European immigrants. And we met at a civil rights rally. Interracial marriage at that time was still illegal. It was illegal in the United States. It was against the law. We decided to get married in defiance to make a point. This was our activism at the time. So we decided to get married against our parents' will. My parents didn't want it. His parents didn't want it. I never met his parents, by the way. They burned his clothes when they found out he wanted to marry me. That's who I was marrying. So what ended up happening was a day, I think it was the day after we married, was the first time he hit me. And we were on our way back to Pittsburgh, which is where we were going to live. I was absolutely stunned, as you can imagine, thoroughly humiliated, thoroughly embarrassed. And what did I conclude? Oh, I must have done something. I don't know what it is, but I must have done something. And I didn't tell anyone. And for 1 year, I tolerated physical abuse and kept it a secret. This started from my experience as a child, the first time it happened. So you see how when you keep abuse a secret, which we tend to do in this culture, it sets you up for more abuse, because abuse really cannot, abuse doesn't like to be out in the open. It doesn't like to be out in the open. So when you're keeping someone else's secret, because it was his secret, he was the one who was abusing me, wasn't he? But I'm keeping his secret and trying to make everything okay. I did everything but leave. Until one day, something in me shifted. There was something in me that transformed. And I felt it in my body. And I heard myself thinking, I know he's crazy, but so are you for putting up with this. And it was in that moment of awareness that, oh, I can do something about me. I can't do anything about him, but because I've been trying for a year, but I can do something about me. And it was in that moment of awareness, that shift, that I made the decision to leave. I wasn't ready to go that day. But I began to to strategize and to plan how I would leave that relationship. What I think helped me do that, what I know helped me do that was, I had been taking a yoga class for a year. I was not taking the yoga class because I was in an abusive relationship. I was not taking the yoga class for physical exercise. It wasn't taught that way in those days. It was a more holistic practice. It was more philosophical, psychological, physical, meditative. It was all of that. And it spoke directly to your spirit, to your soul. And what I experienced in those classes was a depth of inner peace that felt so good. I felt called home to that place of my soul, of my spirit, of my authenticity. And my external life was anything but peaceful. And the contrast was impossible for me to ignore. And believe it or not, we are more attracted to that sense of peace than we are to the chaos, to the abuse, to the negativity, to the pain and suffering that we go through. And without fully understanding what happened, yoga is a transformative practice. It's not the only thing that's transformative, but for me, yoga was a transformative practice. It changed me from the inside out. And because I changed internally, I was then able to take actions that allowed me to leave that place. Instead of being trapped in that relationship, I found liberation. Now, yoga, by the way, is taught as a liberatory practice. And I will tell you this, when you have a good yoga instructor, and Diane is outstanding, by the way, you are taught from a holistic perspective. She's not going to just be teaching you physical exercises. She will teach you in such a way that it will literally support you in coming more fully into who you really are, into remembering who you are. And so in a way, it's kind of like your soul it takes a prison break. You have to remember, a prison is a place you're not allowed to leave. A prison is a place you're not allowed to leave. And many of us find ourselves trapped in the prisons of our mind, in the prisons of our low self-esteem, in the prisons of feeling undeserving, unworthy. And we don't even always know that we're there. We don't even always know that we're there. And as far as race-based stress and trauma is concerned, which it's a unique category and deserves a place of its own within the categories of stress and trauma. Because it's not a mental illness, it's an emotional injury. It's defined as any external race-related event that is memorable, that you remember, which is why I always invite my students and my clients when I was doing therapy to go back to what's that original wound? What is your original memory of whatever the wound is? In this case, race-based stress and trauma. It may not come to mind immediately, but you begin to think, yeah, what was it? when did I first become aware of race, period? And this is not just for Black and brown people, this is for white people too, because white people are a race as well. And white people have your own relationship to race, to your own race, to your own ethnicity, to your own culture. And so we all have an opportunity and an obligation to explore, what is that? Who am I from that perspective? Who am I? So whether you're a target of racism, whether you are a perpetrator of racism, or whether you're an observer of racism, we live in a racialized culture. And we live in a culture of silence around these issues of race and ethnicity. And even though when I wrote this book, it was just not something people were talking about at all. That has shifted, except that what we're seeing in the United States, for sure, is the culture of silence is rearing its ugly head again and trying to erase, and I call it cultural genocide, trying to erase anything that doesn't speak to the dominant culture. Now, when Patricia talked about the fact that abuse occurs when you show up as an individual, think about that. When you are a member of a so-called marginalized group, a so-called subordinated group in the United States, in other words, if you're not white, when you're a member of the group and you show up as an individual, as an authentic human being, as somebody with skills and talents, with your excellence, whatever that is, that's when you are in danger of being abused racially. That's when you become a threat. So it's really important for all of us as we explore and examine, and I'm glad Venus will be there to support you in doing this, as you begin to tell your stories, as you begin to find that place of deep authenticity, know that that will be threatening to some people. That doesn't have to keep you from being it. But you need to know that it is a threat when you show up authentically. It is a threat when you show up in your excellence. It is a threat when you show up as you truly are. That's okay. That's okay. So this work that we're talking about doing is, now there are ways to keep yourself safe though. That's the other piece. It's important that we keep ourselves safe while we're doing this extraordinary work of showing up authentically, because that's really what we're talking about, isn't it? It's really, who am I for real? Who am I for real? I was introduced to yoga by a master. He actually, as it turns out, was a disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote a book called The Autobiography of a Yogi. And so I learned about self-realization. Again, these were not lectures, although there were some lectures, but it wasn't just the lecture part. It was the actual experience of coming home to self that allowed me to take that first step, which was to get out of that abusive relationship. I kept that a secret, by the way. The healing, that was the first step toward healing. I didn't tell anybody about any of that for about 30 years, because that habit of secrecy had lodged in my body, in myself, you see. So stress and trauma lodge in the body. They're not just thoughts that we're having here. And it was not until somebody asked me, I was teaching a class at the University of Michigan, and somebody said, is it possible in an organization to change someone who is abusing you, an abusive boss, for example, to change that through individual personal transformation? And it was the first time I told the story that I just told you. And it was received with great compassion, which was part of the healing. It allowed me to give up my shame and to be more compassionate to myself, which is why this group This group work is so important because you can't, I had to do my own healing work. No one can do that for me, but you need a group of supportive people who are in it with you. You can't do it alone. Your work is your work, but you cannot and don't have to do your work alone. It can't be done. So being part of this group, this We Rise group, is just such an amazing opportunity to tell your story, to talk about your healing, and then to share the wisdom that comes from having been through the experience. All of these shameful experiences I have had that I experienced as shameful have informed my work. It's what I do. It's what I do. It informs my work. It informs who I am. So rather than trauma, when we're traumatized and we stay traumatized, it's because we haven't been able to digest or process the experience. It's been so painful that we've tried to make it go away. We don't want to feel that way. We try to get over the feeling. That's not the solution. The solution is to integrate all of these experiences into one's being, to claim it, own it, experience it, and let it then turn into, it's like alchemy. It's like turning lead into gold, you know? So that's all I have to say about that. And then would you like to do a practice? We'll just, okay. So we'll just do a little bit because we don't have time to do more than a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you through at least one restorative posture. We talked about doing more, but we may not have time for that, but we'll do one restorative posture. Let me tell you about restorative yoga. As far as I'm concerned, all yoga has the potential to be restorative, but all yoga is not restorative yoga. So the restorative yoga that I'm talking about was taught to me traditionally. And in restorative yoga is a receptive form of yoga. It is not an active form of yoga. We use props. That's what the bolster that you will receive is for. Pillows, blankets, anything that we have available to hold the body in various positions for extended periods of time so that the relaxation response can click in where healing occurs. The relaxation response is a real physiologic response. When it takes about 20 minutes of stillness, which we won't have 20 minutes, but you'll get a taste of what we're talking about. It takes about 20 minutes of stillness for that response to click in. But when it does, blood pressure decreases, heart rate slows, metabolism slows, brain waves slow, and breath becomes more efficient. And it's within that space that healing occurs. Our nervous system comes into balance. We have a part of our nervous system that when we're threatened wants to fight or get away. We have another part of our nervous system that helps us kind of recover and digest and process what we're experiencing. And it's called, really, I like to call it the tend and befriend part of us, the part of us that reaches out to each other, that takes good care of ourselves, that takes good care of us. When both of those parts of our nervous system are online, are in balance, we call it homeostasis. We're in balance. And so that's where the healing occurs. For people who are experiencing stress and trauma, our nervous systems are on high alert. We're in that fight flight space. We tend to engage in high effort coping, where we have to be 250% better. We show up 250% better. Michelle Obama writes about it in her book. She said, I learned to march to the beat of unending effort with a willingness to tolerate misery to achieve a goal. How many can relate to that? Yeah. So what that means is we need rest, don't we? Yes, we do. However, how threatening is it to rest, to not do? That can be very scary when your whole life you've been doing everything all the time, nonstop, no matter what, until you either burn out or drop and can't do it anymore. So this practice supports us in getting the rest we need so we can keep doing the work. How's that? All right. And so that we can get clear about choices that we need to make that are in our best interest. So I'm going to share the screen just so to give you a visual of what we're getting ready to do looks like. So restorative yoga is practiced in, where's my thing? Restorative yoga is practiced in stillness and in silence. And what we're going to do is start out in a position called corpse pose. It's in the Sanskrit term is Shavasana. So wherever you are, if you're practicing, if you have a yoga mat, lay that out. If you don't, that's okay. But find a place to lay down on your back and support your knees with a bolster or a pillow, something that just makes it easy for you to be there. You can place a blanket or a pillow under your head. You can put a covering over your eyes so that it's dark. If you feel like putting a blanket on top of you, that's great. One of the things that happens in a restorative practice is because your blood pressure drops, eventually you get cold. And that's how you know you're moving into that deeply relaxed state. So while you're coming into this posture, just extend your arms long by your sides. And let's begin to cultivate an internal focus. So begin to focus your awareness on your breathing. When you inhale, notice the coolness of your breath. And when you exhale, notice the warmth of your breathing. And just continue to let that be your focus as we go through this practice. That's all you have to do is focus on your breathing. If you find yourself getting distracted by sounds that may be around you, by movement of something else in the room, by your thoughts, just bring your awareness back to your breath. It's not at all uncommon for us to notice when we begin to lay down to be still and quiet, we start noticing how busy our mind is. We hear a lot of mind chatter. In this practice, we notice that, but we don't get involved in the thoughts. We just bring our focus back to the breath. Inhale, feel the coolness of breath. Exhale, feel the warmth of the breath. And on your next inhale, just silently repeat to yourself, I'm at rest. And on your exhale, silently repeat to yourself, I release. And just think about what it is you need to release in your life that is no longer serving you. What do you need to let go of? What do you need to release? Inhale, rest. Exhale, release. Just silently repeat those words to yourself. Begin to notice what it's like to release, to let go. You might notice parts of yourself, your body, or even your thoughts that you don't want to release, where you may feel stuck. That's okay. in this practice, we focus on cultivating awareness. Awareness is the medicine of healing. Awareness is the medicine of healing. So we're not ignoring what we feel. We're not judging what we feel. We're just aware. If you find yourself wanting to wiggle or move, just see if you can breathe some awareness into that part of you that feels a little bit itchy. And see if you can surrender to the stillness, to the silence. If at any point this becomes too stressful for you, then just honor that, and you can come out of the posture if you like. When we're on high alert much of the time, we don't always feel comfortable being still. So this is a practice in which we learn to tolerate the discomfort of stillness until we can sink more fully and deeply into the stillness. But you don't ever want to push yourself beyond your ability to tolerate it. So you can stay here if you like, but if you'd like to experience another restorative posture, take a deep inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. Another deep inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And one final inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And then just very gently roll over onto your right side, coming into a fetal position, and just stay there for a moment, checking in with yourself, noticing how you feel. And then pressing the palm of your left hand into the ground and tucking your chin, just bring yourself up to seated. And if you like, you can take a look at your computer screen. Take your bolster and place it vertically on your mat. And I think if you can see Diane, she's doing it. She's actually setting herself up. So Diane, you'll be my model, okay? So coming onto your right hip, if you come onto then your back will be to us. Okay, she's going to do it. All right. So just coming onto your right hip, scoot the bolster up close to your hip. And you see how her knees are bent back behind her. She's going to sit up straight and tall, though. She's going to sit up straight and tall. Yes, she is. She's going to place her fingertips on either side of the bolster. And before she lays down, she's going to sit up and square her torso off toward the front. There she goes, front of the bolster. And then she's just going to come to laying across the bolster, and her face is going to be pointed in the same direction as her knees. Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that nice? She's covering herself with a blanket, which you can do as well. And then once you are settled in, return your focus to your breath. Paying attention to the coolness of breath as you inhale and the warmth of the breath as you exhale. Part of the practice of yoga teaches us to reflect, to be reflective, not reactive. We reflect on our own internal sense of self. We reflect on our lives. So the story that I told, the reflection that I know he's crazy, but so am I, was a powerful awareness for me. It held up an amazing mirror for me to reflect. Oh, I can do something about me. And in that recognition, I remembered that, wait a minute, I don't deserve this. I don't have to put up with this. So on your next inhale, just simply repeat silently to yourself the word reflect. And on your exhale, repeat the word remember. And just continue that silent repetition. Reflect, remember. And just receive whatever may come up for you in your thoughts, in your emotions, in your physical feelings as you go through this. Again, remember, awareness is the medicine of healing. We want to be aware. So in the interest of time, if you'd like to move into another posture, and by the way, if this were a real restorative class, if we would be doing, we would be holding these postures for 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. And clearly, we don't have that kind of time. So this is just an appetizer. And we're also not going to, we would also move you onto the other side. So you did the right side and the left side, but we're not going to do that today either. So if you'd like to experience a final posture, fingertip your way back up to seated. And there's an image on the screen of where we're going, but Diana's going to demonstrate how to get into it. for us. If you would like a visual, take a look. So Diane, come into into hands and knees with the bolster. Yeah, not shoved too far in between her knees, but you see her knees are around where the bolster is. Separate your knees as far apart as you can that's comfortable. It doesn't have to be mat width apart. They may be close together. And then put your toes, your big toes are touching. The tops of your feet are flat on the mat and your big toes are touching. And then she's going to move back. She's going to sit back toward her heels as far as she can go. Yeah, there she goes. She's going to adjust the bolster and bring it a little bit closer to herself. Yeah. And then she's just going to fold forward across the bolster. Now, again, if your hips are tight, you're not going to be able to get your hips all the way back to your heels. That's okay. And so your hips are going to be elevated. What she's doing now is putting a blanket under her hips for support, because that'll make it much more comfortable for her. Yeah. And once again, we return our focus to our breath. So child's pose is a pose that reminds us that we can always begin again. It is a pose of renewal and restoration. And in our lives, when we find ourselves in situations that we would rather not be in, that we wish we were not in, and we decide and we can't do anything about it, or we don't know what to do about it, so we stay, we just remember that we can always begin again, can always begin again. That's always available to us. And so each day, each moment, we approach it with a beginner's mind, with the innocence of a child, with no condemnation, no expectation. And so just silently repeat to yourself in this posture, on your inhale, renew. On your exhale, restore. And these affirmations that you're saying really help shift your consciousness. Remember, Patricia talked to us about our consciousness, that when we find ourselves in abusive situations and we've stayed and we begin to believe what we're hearing, it impacts our consciousness. Well, guess what? We have the power to impact our consciousness. And so saying positive affirmations helps us do that. So turn your head to the other side if you haven't already, just to kind of balance out the position your neck is in. And again, when you're ready, take a deep inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. 2 more times, another deep inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And one final inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And then fingertip your way back up to seated. And find a comfortable seat and come on back to your computer screen. And if you like, and I would encourage you to do this, although you don't have to, the way I always end my restorative classes is to ask people to choose one word that describes what you're experiencing now and just put it in the chat. Bliss, peace, peace and joy, peaceful. Yeah. Serenity, calmness, so I'm going to read this. Thank you so much. That was, wait. Oh no. Okay. I was never a fan of yoga, meditation, because I have anxiety and can never stop my mind. What you said about not having to stop the chatter, but not focusing on it, and the breath instead really helped. That's meditation, by the way. A lot of us think that are even taught that our mind should stop thinking. Minds don't stop thinking. That's what minds do. They think. Hearts beat, minds think. Lungs don't really breathe, but we think they do. You know what I mean? So, so the practice is to return your attention to what you're focused on, which when you're in meditation or in a yoga practice is on the meditation or the yoga or the breath, not the thought. So the thoughts don't stop. So a meditative mind is an observed mind. It is not a still mind. It's not a quiet mind, but the mind will drop into stillness at some point, but it won't stay there very long. So refresh and refresh. Thank you. This is amazing. I am deserved to be loved. Absolutely. Yes, you are. So that's what these self-care practices are, by the way. It is a way to treat ourselves with loving kindness. And when we can do it in a group, it's awesome because everybody's doing it and it's contagious. It is. It is. Just as negativity is contagious, so are these practices contagious. So that's all I have to say. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments. And that, by the way, was like, we did that real fast. This is not typically how it would be done, but you can see that even in a short period of time, shifts occur. Yeah. And the shift isn't permanent. You have to keep doing it. It's not like, okay, that's it, I'm done. I took a restorative class, I'm done. I don't have to do any more. I went to a lecture, I went to the seminar, I went to the group, I'm done. No, this is a lifelong, everyday practice, whether you want to or not. It's called discipline.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Parker. That was really incredible. I feel so relaxed. I think we probably should have done a little of this before and then some of it at the end. So that's just my take on it. But thank you so much.
Maybe, maybe not. I had someone once said to me, I'm never coming to your restorative class again. I said, why? She said, because it makes me too relaxed and then I can't get anything done. So, and oh, by the way, let me just say this. If doing what we just did, which was like a really brief practice, if you know you are busy and have a lot to get done, do the brief practice. Because if you do the hour-long practice, you probably won't want to do anything. You may not want to do anything else. Anyway.
Yeah. And I actually just did this in the office. So yeah,
Okay.
No, I just want to stay calm. Okay, as we continue on, we're just going to move into having some more draw for books. And these are written by Diane Bondi and Dr. Gail Parker.
All right, congratulations, Samar. That's so wonderful.
Are we having one more draw?
Yep, I think so.
Yep.
Where's my name?
All right, up par. Congratulations. And of course, let me make sure and read the titles of the books from these wonderful authors and speakers that we had with us today. Yoga Where You Are, Customize Your Practice for Your Body and Your Life. And Restorative Yoga for Ethnic and Race-Based Stress and Trauma by our most recent speaker here, Dr. Gail Parker. And I have to agree, I know it's not my turn to say this, but wow, that was truly amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Gail Parker. And this program is so exciting. Watching Diane do the poses, listening to Dr. Venus Ola and our opening speaker, it was all really wonderful. Joan?
Okay, thank you so much, Rose. Okay, so we're coming almost to the end of, well, to the end of our event today, but there are some questions, and I don't know if that's okay, if we could just ask maybe one or two questions. Okay, so the first one, I'm going to direct this to Diane Bondi, and it is, can you further explain a bit more about the difference of meditation and the restorative yoga method?
So like Dr. Gail just spoke on, the restorative method is where we are using the props to hold our body, that it's a deep relaxation. And when that is happening, meditation is occurring, right? So somebody here experienced their observing their thoughts, right? So it gives you the space and it gives you the comfort to sink down into this practice. So what we traditionally seen in yoga is a very active practice, right? You see a lot of up and down and rolling around your mat. That's not what we're doing. That can be considered a moving meditation because we're focused on that movement. But what we're focused on in restorative yoga is stillness. And that is where we are, where we are connected. So Gail, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I would just, other than the obvious, which is the restorative practice is more of an embodied experience than the meditation practice is, except that in meditation you're sitting and being still. But
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's another question for you, Dr. Gail Parker, and it is, further explain a bit more the difference between meditation and this restorative yoga method. Well, no, I think it's the same one. It's the same question. Sorry about that. Okay, someone is asking if we could show the book cover so that they can buy it. We could do that at the end if that's okay with you, Donia.
here's mine.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I think, Diane, you have yours as well? Thank you. And we have one more question, and this one is in the Q&A. I'm going to ask Venus this one, and it's a long one. It says, so far I somehow feel for complaining or kind of blaming is daily life. Even if we have beautiful relationships, I feel to put such a big deal of verbal abuse is not good to solve the problem because the other person will feel very much against it. It is not good to solve the problem and have healthy relationships. I do not like the idea to put my spouse verbally abusing verbally abusing me into my head because that will block my mind to go into how can I solve the problem. So in summary, and the question is, where is the fine line to identify it as verbal abuse or just not nice words? I'm not quite sure if Patricia is here as well. Maybe she could also say a few words along with Venus.
Is Patricia here?
I don't think so.
I,
No.
okay, so I did see the question. I think it's going to take a lot longer kind of to answer that question, and just, you know, it's something that would need to be explored, and it's something that would be explored in the sessions. I think really, I think I'm understanding. I'm going to repeat the question of how I'm understanding it. The question is, where is the line between verbal abuse and somebody just saying something that's not nice? I think, or, you know, again, it's a difficult question because I think it's also very personal, individual, right? It could be the fact that you just, both of the two of you have a way of communicating that might not be seen from the outside as positive, or, do you know what I mean? So that's why I know it sounds like I'm being a politician here and circumventing the answer, but it's such a personal thing, and the dynamics are between the two people. So for example, I will use myself as an example, because Dr. Parker's, thank you for giving me permission, because I forget to use my own stories. It's like, there are certain things that I'm just not going to tolerate my husband telling me or saying to me. Whereas another person be like, oh, Venus, you're being so sensitive about it. But no, but this is my personal feeling. I do not want this word said to, oh, you know, I don't want this. I don't, you know, and we have negotiated and kind of played with it over the, I think, 20 something years of us being married, right? Change in how I know who I am and who I am. Maybe there are things that I tolerated early on in the marriage that I won't tolerate now. So it's such a, that's why I'm not trying to skirt around the answer, but it's not that simple. And I don't like simplifying and acting like, you know, there's this and there's a right and there's a wrong and there's a this, and it doesn't help people personally. But if anybody else on the panel would like to speak, I'm like Dr. Parker, she's, you know, or Diane, but I do think it is very personal.
Thank you, Venus. That's all right.
I think, can I say something? Do we have time?
Sure.
So one of the things that I think that I teach is that this, which kind of answers the question about meditation and restorative yoga as well. For me, this is always a practice of self-study. This is never a practice about studying somebody else, why they're doing what they're doing, why they're saying what they're saying, what they say, what they mean. It's because I don't know that we don't have control over that. There's I don't know if you know the Serenity Prayer. It goes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. But I have what I call the Serenity Prayer remix. It goes like this. You can say it along with me if you like. God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change. Yeah, we'll do a call and response, panelists. God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change.
God grant me the serenity to accept the people
I cannot change.
Courage to change the one I can.
Courage to change the one I can.
And wisdom to know it's me.
And wisdom to know it's me. I like the remix.
So in yoga, we have a principle called ahimsa, nonviolence. And there's one of the yoga sages tells us about that as far as language is concerned. Is it something I should say or something I shouldn't say? You know, is it violent or is it not? And that's a subjective experience. That depends on the person receiving it. But here's a formula. For those of you who like formulas, here's one. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? And does it improve upon the silence? If it meets all four, go for it. If not, you might want to keep it to yourself. That's all I have to say.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Gail Parker. I appreciate that. Lots of good knowledge, deep conversation right now. I could just feel a change. I don't know if it's because, yeah, there's a shift even in my very office just from this talk. All right, we've come to the end of the event, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Please feel free to put as many comments as you want to in the chat. We'll just kind of go through them as we're, going to be signing off shortly. As well, I see a question in regards to the sessions. It is for free. The link is in the chat as well, but you can visit our website, the Stay Well, Work Well program. Information is there. Feel free to register for that. There's a yoga portion as well, like I mentioned before, with Diane Bondi. So if you had a great session today, Diane is very much influenced by Dr. Gail Parker. So, and Diane will be our yoga instructor. So feel free to register for the event. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And just as
Thank
we're
you so
leaving,
much.
Dr. Patricia Evans had recommended that we close with a song. So I'm just gonna share that
Okay.
with you because I promised her we would. She just told us to keep our fires burning and keep on going. And she thinks this girl on fire is something we should remember. So enjoy and have a great day.
I sang on America's Got Talent. I got the golden buzzer on it, yes. And I'm sure you all know it. It is Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. She's just a girl and she's on fire. Harder than a fantasy, roaming like a highway. She's living in a world and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. Whoa, she got both feet on the ground and she's burning it down. Whoa, she got her head in the clouds, but she's not backing down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye now.